Hiking Year 2017. Sadly, the first get-together we had in the year was to say goodbye to Lydia. She was a hiking companion and friend for many years. In November, she still was with us on the Rapids Trail near Belfast. In early December, we saw her at our year-end party, but the cancer was taking its toll. In early January, she passed away quietly. She will always be in our memory. Suikerbos, a place in the Vredefort Dome, close to Venterskroon. We had a luxury weekend in a fully furnished house. See us lounging around. The hike was not a great hike, was too short, but had some interesting features. It was the site of the Battle of Tygerfontein during the Boer War. So the fortifications are from later during the war. The British put them up to control the movement of the enemy. We also took note and also inspected some holes dug for gold prospecting and mining. Not much gold could have been found, otherwise some of these holes would have become mines. The hike was over too soon. For the afternoon we did something unusual. We went to the bar of the Imperial Inn at Venterskroon for a drink or two. We were back later to have the compulsory braai. River rafting. This is almost becoming a standard, 3 times in a row, and next year is also starting with river rafting, but this time at a different place. We started at the Otterhorn near Parys and went down the river for about 5 kilometers. The rapids were negotiated without incidents, and a picnic lunch enjoyed by everyone afterwards. Golden Gate. That was a trip, just Frans and I, camping at the Golden Gate. The first thing we had to do was fix the electricity. The 2 plugs available to us, one had burned out and the other one had some loose connection. We are not electricians, but managed to make one good plug out of the 2. It's so typical. This is how the country is going. And we had some other strange and interesting incidents on this trip. There were the horses that came through the campsite one morning, obviously looking for edible things. At our tent, one of the horses investigated our table. Anything not edible was just pushed off, but things like my breakfast muesli found a customer. We were going to hike up to a wood house that was foiled by the path not clearly marked. We followed a path that came to an end, and it wasn't just us. Another party joined us in a search for the missing path. No luck. When we eventually found our mistake, well, not our mistake, it's a Parksport mistake, it was getting too late for going up. The next day we did a hike from Sunnyside. The only person we found there was the chef, and he just pointed in the general direction of the mountain and said, "Go that way." So we did, and eventually ran out of path. But my GPS had the waypoint of the overnight hut of the Angel's Wing hike, and it was only 1.2 kilometers away. So we thought, let's make that our aim. Here we had an incident with a puff adder. Frans nearly stood on it. It was curled at the entrance to the hut. It's a beautiful snake. On the way down, we managed to find a path that led us into the cauldron. Lovely place. Franz actually managed to swim. For me, it was too cold. Donnerduurs is a place near Dahlstrom in the eastern Transvaal. Not much hiking around there, but it is an interesting place. The village, the Van Kincolet, consists of a few houses, fairly widespread. They are trying to make a tourist attraction out of the place, and I think they are succeeding. We stayed in a house behind the bar. On the first day hike, we went along the stream and around back to the road. We did have the usual moments when we thought we are lost. For the evening, we felt we wanted to support the proprietor. Sat in the bar and have one of his hamburgers for dinner. It was delicious. We went on a shortish hike the next day and spent some time exploring the quaint places of the village, like the cheese shop, the bookshop, and the general dealer. The steam train ride. We had to get up early in the morning to make our way to Pretoria to catch the steam train at the Hermanstad station to take us to Cullinan. It was to be boarded by 7 o'clock in the morning. It took us a while to get out of the station. There was something wrong with the signalling system that would allow the train onto the main line. The problem was solved after an hour of shunting us around. We got on the way to Ruyten. The train couldn't make it to Cullinan because some of the tracks had been stolen. The rest of the way we were taken by bus. Spent some time in Cullinan looking at shops and sites, and thus back using a slightly different route past the Pretoria main station. Blue Wildebeest. We did this hike with Tom and Rita of the Wayward hiking group. From our side we had Judith, Franz, Oliver and me. It was a nice group. We had some interesting conversations. Oliver had brought his dog, Peanut, along, and she gave us some drama on the hike. We were going up the mountain and I saw a dog running in the distance and running in the wrong direction. Panic when I told Oliver, "Is that your dog?" Yes, it was. She had clearly lost us and didn't know which way to go. Oliver managed to catch up with her and bring her back to the group. The hike could continue. In the evening we were entertained by Oliver's bread making. And not to forget the delicious communal chicken stew that we had in the evening. Sunday morning, Franz and Tom went on a real hike, whilst the rest of us only took a stroll and looked around. Much to my distress, the real hikers returned and announced that they saw some interesting ruins, and they didn't take any pictures. Now there's a reason to return to this hike, not only for the ruins, but also to have a swim in the stream at a time when the water is warmer. Castle Gorge. Some of us joined the Heritage Foundation on a hike up to Castle Gorge in the Magaliesberge. And it was not just a hike, but also an educational trip. The walk started off very pleasantly from the car park past a herd of giraffes who were not very skittish, allowing us to take many pictures. When we reached the top, we first had a lecture about the history and what we would find and see here. During the Boer War, the pass was occupied and fortified by the British forces. There are remnants of gun positions called the Sengwein, a horse kraal, ammunition store, and forts. We had our own expert Andre along to show us what was what. Because we spent so much time around these ruins, we were unable to get down to Castle Gorge and only made it to the Piranha Pool before turning around. Elangeni. Through a new contact, Greg, who we met at the Castle Gorge hike, we got an invite to join the Dragebag Hiking Club on a hike to the Elangeni, that is near Waterval Buren. No, Waterval Onder. It is a backpack of 14 and 10 kilometers. But we didn't actually backpack, but rather paid somebody to take our stuff to the hut by tractor. From our group, we had Jenny, Rosario and me attending. We were going up to the mountain hut. Hiking was initially very tame, all along the river on fairly flat ground, and then up and up to the plateau at 1,700 meters, and up of about 400 meters. The scenery was very nice, and finally we had a steep down again to the hut. Nice hut, just that the showers didn't work very well. Onward we went next day, up a bit, and then some magnificent waterfalls. Would have been even more magnificent if there had been more water. Passing some of the Pokoma ruins, close to the end point, finished the day. Aviantos. Aviantos is a hotel and conference center in the Muldersdrift area near Joburg. Not much of a hike, distances are short, the terrain is limited, and the hikes have been laid out such that one gets maximum distance from a limited area. The walk along the river was nice. We even found a waterfall. The stream we followed is actually the stream coming down the waterfall at the botanical garden nearby. What I also found interesting are signs of previous mining activities. This being close to Joburg, one immediately thinks of gold mining. I associated it with the Kromdraai gold rush. Not so. Some research at home showed that this was an asbestos mine, not as glamorous. From this place we went over to the botanical garden. Tuesday is free entrance for pensioners, to have our lunch sitting on the grass. It was a long weekend, and what better place to go to than Injisuti in the Drakensberge for a hiking holiday. Jenny had organized it and got us a cheap price of about 250 Rand per person per night. And what was very surprising, got 20 people together. The weather turned to mist, cold and drizzled by the morning. This didn't stop us from going on a hike. The aim was to go towards the marble baths and to turn around when convenient. There was a split in the party when some of us wanted to rather go to the Battle Cave. Battle Cave is a place with lots of Bushman paintings, but these are secured by a big fence and barbed wire to keep vandals out. This was then our turning point. On the return trip we bumped into others, returning from the attempt to reach the marble baths. Theoretically, we should have stopped for a lunch break, but the weather had taken a turn for the worst, and nobody felt like having a sit-down meal, and we just pushed on back to our huts. The next morning started very leisurely, but eventually some of us got going and went on a short hike That was around the mountain through the Yellowwood forest. Very pleasant walk. Next day was nothing else to be done, just pack up and return to our dreary lives. Dobela Dobeng. Dobela Dobeng on the Vaal in the Venterskroon area near Parys. This time we did a slightly different route, which turned out to be more interesting. From the office we went straight up the mountain. It took us to a mine I have never been to before. In here we met a rhombic night adder. That is a venomous snake. Fortunately, according to the snake book, it requires extreme provocation before it strikes. Higher up near the shoulder we came to some old kraals. At the office we were shown some Iron Age tools that came from this place. A small detour took us to a viewpoint overlooking the valley formed by the Vaal River. A stunning view. Over the top in town we came to one of the holiday houses and found it open for inspection. Following the road up to the mines, we were going to come back through the Red Donga, but somehow missed that one and finished up going up the mountain, passing behind the rock where they do the climbing and abseiling. There was another mine entrance just before we got down. Makwekwe, that was actually in May, but I overlooked this one, so now we have to add it to the end. Makwekwe, a hike about 35 kilometers from Nylstroom on the Vaal-Water Road. Accommodation was very nice, we lacked nothing. Saturday morning, as happens so often, we charged off in the wrong direction and had to be brought back to base by France, who insisted that this is the wrong path. Consulting the map, we had to agree, and charged off into a different direction. Charging at full speed, soon slowed down to a crawl. Markings were good, but the path is obviously not used very often and was difficult to walk. Uphill, stick and stones, rocks and grass all hindered our progress. Well, we managed and hiked from an elevation of 1,375 meters to 1,650. From the top, things went a bit easier. Lower down we found a proper well-trodden path, and in no time were we back at camp. Highlight of the evening was meat fondue. It required intense activity in the kitchen. We had lots of fun cooking our meat and vegetables. Sunday morning was going to the dams and up the mountain on the other route. But here France faced a rebellion. This path was even worse than the previous day, more rocks and more grass. So we trundled back to the hut for lunch and departure.